It has been cold recently, and maybe you or someone you know has had some trouble meeting the obligations at paying their utility bills. There is help out there, and now is the time to get it. In fact, Consumers Energy has a program called the CARE program, and those administering that for Consumers Energy happen to be the United Way of Jackson County. And Ken Toll is here, President and CEO of the United Way in Jackson County, to talk about that. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning, Richard.
Thank you for the time today.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Is this a tremendous problem or an average problem this year, do you suppose?
It's a tremendous problem every year. We run the 211 call center, as you're probably familiar with.
Yes.
People throughout the state can call 211 for any kind of need they have, and every single year, every month, utility assistance is at the top of the unmet needs. It's one of those things that's very difficult to fill because people can build up a pretty big arrearage, and there's not a lot of piles of cash laying around to pay those arrearages down when they happen. So
Boy, oh boy.
It's a problem that compounds pretty quickly, and it's pretty significant if you lose your heat on a cold day like today.
Sure. And you talk about that arrearage, and once you do that, there's a reconnect to a fee that's associated with that.
Right,
and,
yeah. They disconnect you. There's extra fees. They try not to disconnect you. I've worked with Consumers Energy for a long time, and people hate to do a disconnect, but there's actually laws that govern when and how they do that, and they have to follow those laws. So it's a difficult situation, and I think it all starts because, when you've got to feed your kids and when you've got to pay the rent, you do those things first. And if your car is your only way to get to work and you've got to earn that paycheck, you take care of your car. And Consumers is one of those bills you can put in the drawer. You know that they're not going to turn you off tomorrow if you don't pay it. And so a lot of people just slide that first bill aside, and then when they don't get turned off the next month, they can slide the second bill aside. And as I said, it can just keep compounding.
Yeah, it makes sense. You've characterized it probably pretty well in those situations. And, of course, you've also characterized the rub there. I mean, you want to pay that, but you can't. But on the other hand, Consumers doesn't want to just immediately shut it off because that can lead to other problems.
Yeah, they'd never want to shut it off, but they have to after a point, and they go in and do that. And as you said, once they do shut it off, there's a reconnect fee, so it becomes a bit of a trap. We find that throughout our economy, there's a lot of traps for people if you get a little bit behind here and there. And we think with the United Way, there's some things we can do to help people pull themselves out of that instead of getting caught in all these traps.
All right.
And so this is one reason we're working with CARE. We think that there are some things we can do to maybe tweak it a little bit and make it more proactive for people, to give them a hand up instead of a handout.
All right. We're going to talk about that and what exactly that means coming up in just a minute on WBCK 812. 14 WBCK. Ken Toll is here, the President, CEO of United Way Jackson. We're talking about meeting your utility bill obligations and a special program by way of Consumers Energy to help you do that if you're having trouble. Ken, let's first talk about how the United Way is involved in this and how did that happen?
Sure. Yeah, we've been partnering with Consumers Energy for a long, long time. They're one of the United Way's biggest supporters in Jackson County. Actually, by far our biggest supporter in Jackson. Their headquarters is there. Sure. And for decades, they have really set the standard high in terms of a philanthropic giving corporation. We've had lots of connections with them, but recently it occurred to them that they were paying a couple of other groups to do the processing of these CARE applications. When people want to apply, there's a fairly rigorous process. You have to prove your income eligible. You have to make sure that you're living in the right address. There's a few hoops to jump through. And they approached me last year and said, we're paying other people to do this. What if we paid United Way to do this? Could you earn any revenue? Because any revenue you keep, you can apply to the programs. And we thought that was a very interesting model, not only because we will earn some revenue, but even more importantly, we're learning a lot more about these clients. We know that there are a lot of folks who are in poverty. We also know there are a lot of people who aren't technically in poverty, but who are struggling to make their bills meet. And this gave us a real opportunity to work with several thousand families to hear their stories, to better understand their situation, and hopefully develop some better community solutions for the challenges they face.
So someone's listening to this and they want to know what CARE program is. Let's tell them.
Sure. It's Consumers Affordable Resource for Energy. It's just a nice acronym. Every year, Consumers tries to make utility assistance available in a variety of ways. If you're very low income, if you have no income, you should go to the Department of Human Services because they can pay your energy bills. This program is designed for, as I said, the working poor, the people who do have some income, but have just struggled to make it. And And so if you have an arrearage of up to $3,000, that shows that you're struggling to make it, but you don't qualify for this if you have more than a $3,000 arrearage. There are other programs that can help with that. But if you have a couple bills behind, if you're up to $3,000 in arrears, and you make 150% or less of the federal poverty level, you can send in your information, and enrollment is automatic. If you meet that criteria, we enroll you on the spot. We actually log in from the United Way to Consumer's computer, say care starts today, and you immediately see a credit of 30 to 50% off your monthly bill. And if you pay it every single month for 12 months, your arrearage gets wiped out. So this program is for people who are working, struggling, but who could use a fresh start, because if you succeed and you pay every month for the 12 months, if you can pay half your bill, you will have a completely fresh start, and that balance is completely wiped out.
Okay, so two things happen. One, you get part of the bill reduced. That can help ease the problem a little bit. And then if you demonstrate that you can pay, the rest of it goes away.
Yes, yeah. You only have to pay 30 to 50% of your total bill throughout the year. It varies based on winter and summer. They make it a little easier by paying more of the bill in the winter. But throughout the year, you'll pay about half of your total energy usage. And when all is said and done, you're out of the hole and you're starting fresh.
Right.
It's a pretty well-designed program in that respect.
And you anticipate where I'm going next. We presume that you've seen the results of this and they're good.
Well, we continue to track that. Consumers wasn't set up in the past to follow these families year after year, so we're analyzing the data now. We're seeing if they received care over the past couple of years, are they still in the situation where they need it or not? And obviously, the more we can target, some people may require different interventions. One thing we're doing this year that's because of our partnership is we're working closely with our 211 call center. And so folks can call 211 and find out if they're eligible for care or not. The 211 call center can actually say, you know what, based on what you're telling me about your situation, you're better off going here or there. So our first partnership with was a 211 to say, let's make sure that the right people are getting into care, because it will help people who are earning some income and need a little bit of help, but it's not for people who are deeply, deeply in poverty.
Right. Well, and I have a thought about that in a second, but I presume this just made the process easier, because if you're already hearing from folks who are calling 211 and saying, I need help now, under the old system, you would have passed them on to someone else who would try to get them into the care program. Now that you're doing it, boy, that's one phone call.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, 211 still has to direct them to get the application. They still have to fill out a paper application and send it to us. So there's still some steps involved. But you're right. Anytime we employ 211, we find new uses for it and new ways to make it easier to access services. That's what 211 is all about.
Interesting. So this is between up to, you said, a $3,000 arrearage with Consumers Energy. So we presume this is where the problem was for a lot of folks. If you have a huge arrearage beyond $3,000, that's something else. This little zone here might not have been immediately recognized as one that was active with problems.
You're right. We've learned a lot about the working poor over the last couple of years. United Ways have really dived deeply into this issue as we look more at financial stability, and we have to look more at financial stability. You know, in Jackson County, we have a group working on education and a group working on health access and health care, and both of those groups have said, we can only marginally impact this problem. The real root of the problem is poverty, and until we raise people's livings and create a little bit more stability, we're never going to educate people to their full potential or keep them healthy. Everything is going back to this issue of poverty. So as we learn more about it, we've realized that the federal poverty level isn't accurate. It measures based on what it cost in 1967 to live. So the federal poverty level says if you make $11,700, you're fine. You can afford housing and clothing and food, and you're good. Nonprofits have known for a long time that's not accurate. So most of our programs take 150% or even 200% of the federal poverty level as a more accurate measure. The CARE program takes 150%. We did this ALICE study a few months ago, which you may have heard about, where we said, let's even get more granular. So county by county now, we can tell exactly what it actually costs to live. And it's far more than the federal poverty level. So you're right, this program targets those who are above that level, but not too far above, because those folks are doing okay. Again, if you're making 200% of the federal poverty level, you can afford the basics in life.
Right.
But if you're making 150%, you really can't.
1967 statistics, that's 50 years ago almost.
Well, if President Obama reset them to be accurate numbers, he would be the president that plunged half the country into poverty, and that's not a legacy any president has wanted for the last 20 years.
Wow.
I'm sure there's more to it than that, but there's been political reluctance to adjust that number since they created it, and so that's what we're stuck with.
Ken Toll is here, President and CEO of the United Way in Jackson, which is now administering the Consumers Energy Care program. And if this is something that you think you might like to get an application and fill that out and apply, There's a deadline to do that, and we'll talk about that coming up in just a minute on WBCK. 823 WBCK. Ken Toll is here from the United Way in Jackson County, administering the CARE program, which helps folks who are in arrears with their energy bill catch up. And if you're just catching up with us now, the concept is if you qualify, certain income level and so on, and are in a certain amount arrears, it can reduce your monthly payments. And then if you are steady with the payments over a year, it erases the arrearage, which is huge. But you need to apply for this, right, Ken?
Correct, yeah. And I should say, first of all, you have to be a Consumers Energy customer.
Yes,
so
good
DTE
point.
has their own programs, Lansing Water and Light have their own programs. But if you're a Consumers customer and you have $3,000 or more or less in back arrearages, you can apply very simply. There's a paper application you have to fill out. It's about 7 pages long. You can get it again. You can call 211. If you forget everything else I say today, just dial 211 and they will direct you to it.
Okay.
But if you remember this, you can email us at careprogram, C-A-R-E program, at uwjackson.org. That's a letter U, letter W for UnitedWayJackson.org.
Okay.
Or you can go to our website, uwjackson.org/care-program, or go to our website and say, I need help. There's a button right there that says looking for help. And when you do that, one of the first things you see on the links is the CARE application. You fill it out. It's about 7 pages. Like I said, you do have to return all your proof of income because this is a federal program. The dollars they access are federal, and we have to have federal audits on a weekly basis and prove that we're doing it right. So you do have to send us all your pay stubs recently. That's all explained in the application. You have to include Social Security numbers for everybody in the house. You have to sign it or we reject it. If you do everything right, we enroll you immediately if you meet the criteria. But if you're missing anything, we will call you, text you, hunt you down, and say, please send us this so we can finish this processing. It's important to know, though, that these are only open until the end of the month. That's why we're here talking today. We thought that we would be full by now, and interestingly, we aren't. We still have close to 1,000 spots left, so I'm letting people know.
Goodness.
Apply quickly because we have to stop enrollment at the end of this month, and we would love to fill up before then.
The notion is that just not enough people know about this. You're going to get the 1,000, we presume.
Yeah, we were very cautious about announcing it because we couldn't process 20,000. One of our contractual requirements is we answer everybody immediately, and within 10 days, everyone is processed. And if we had been flooded with applications, we didn't have the staff to do that. So we were cautious in how we talked about it. And as a result, we're down in our census. So now we're not being so cautious anymore. I'm here letting all your listeners know, if you're interested, get the application, read it, call us if you have any questions. There's an 800 number you can call. Our staff will talk you through it, answer your questions, and if you do qualify, please apply. We would love to help you out.
So why is there a deadline? I mean, if someone is in arrears any time of the year, why couldn't they apply any time of the year?
These are grant funded, as I said, and all those grants have requirements. When you can spend the money, how you spend the money, when you have to report that you spent the money. So again, there's multiple fingers in these pots, and we have to keep them all happy. And one requirement is we have to be wrapped up very early in the year. We started enrollment actually in November, and have to be done by the end of January.
All right, and as you explained, of course, in the beginning, United Way of Jackson in Jackson County, of course, that's where Consumers Energy is based, and so that made the connection for you to be the fiduciaries of this. But if someone here in Calhoun County is listening to this and they go to the United Way Calhoun County, they're not going to find this, are they? Or how does that work?
That's right. We did put applications in certain sites where there are folks called Benefits Access Navigators. So if you've been to Community Action and talked to a Benefits Access Navigator, your federally qualified health center, any place where you've been, if you've talked to a navigator, they should have a pile because we sent them through that network.
Okay.
But the United Way network hasn't fully engaged. We're talking next year. Is there more we can do and build on this? And maybe they will be available next year in your United Way. But at this point, it's not a United Way system-wide effort. It's just United Way of Jackson County. Okay. And you probably know we're all independent and local.
Right.
I know quite a bit about what's going on in Battle Creek and Kalamazoo United Ways, but I focus primarily on Jackson because that's where our donors want their dollars to stay. So we aren't as connected as some other networks you may think of when you look at United Ways.
Well, and certainly we heard a lot about the merging of the United Ways in Battle Creek and Kalamazoo, but that was not a Battle Creek Kalamazoo Jackson merging. So there are still some territory boundaries.
Although it was a great merger, and if they want to talk, I would love to talk to them about that. But
all right, you heard it here first. All right,
definitely something all United Ways are looking at. We have to be efficient, and sometimes a merger is a good way to help with that.
Well, and that's not a foreign concept. We've certainly heard, and I think the governor set that tone early in his tenure by saying, hey, we all should figure out ways to work together more and reduce expenses.
Exactly.
And the thought is that that's been successful then for United Way.
It has been successful, but again, United Way's real value proposition is local people solving local problems. And
Right.
so if I tell Jackson, now you send all your checks to Kalamazoo, we lose some of that feel. So one thing we've learned is United Ways do merge. We don't typically downsize staff and move headquarters. We simply consolidate some administration and we look more proactively at bigger pots of money. The merger gets interesting when you can go, Jackson, if we call Kellogg Foundation or Mott Foundation, we're small potatoes.
Yeah.
But if we went in combination with other United Ways and represented millions of people, all of a sudden we get more attention. So we look at economies of scale and how we can access bigger levers, and sometimes that means working better together.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Well, let's repeat how folks get in touch with you if they want to be part of this CARE program, if they think they qualify.
Absolutely. First, they can simply call us. The number is 844-249-0763. That's 844-249-0763. Or call 211 if you forget that, because they can help you. You can also email careprogram@uwjackson.org, or just go to our website, uwjackson.org, and look for I Need Help, and it's right there.
All right. Ken Toll, United Way Jackson. It's called the Consumers Energy Care Program. If you're having trouble making your Consumers Energy payment, energy bill, look into this. You may qualify. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.
We'll stay in touch. 8:20.